What is cross-site scripting and why do we care about it? Cross-site scripting is a vulnerability that allows attackers to inject JavaScript into web applications. Those applications are then viewed by unsuspecting targets and bad things can happen. Now that's a hell of a sentence to start a video with, so let's break that apart a little bit and try to understand exactly what all this is about. Before I do that, these things can get you into some serious trouble. So if you don't have permission, don't do them. By all means, practice in your labs, just don't get yourself into any trouble. I mean it, this stuff is potentially illegal, so if you don't know what you're doing, stay in your lab until you do. Okay, say we have an attacker, let's say that's me, and a vulnerable website. Let's say YouTube as an example, seeing as we're already here, and it's going to make it easier to explain. You're my target. Hey, purely as an example, say I want to get you to subscribe to PewDiePie, because, well, that appears to be a trend these days. Now, if YouTube comments were vulnerable to this sort of attack, I could inject a small amount of JavaScript into the comment box below, and whenever you or your friends watch this video, the browser loads and runs that JavaScript. For every view this video gets, PewDiePie gets another potential subscriber. Okay, so now that I've given you that example, let's look at that initial sentence again. Cross-site scripting is a vulnerability, clearly, that allows attackers, me, to inject JavaScript, just like my malicious JavaScript that we put in the comment section, into web applications like YouTube. Those applications are then viewed by unsuspecting targets, you and your friends watching this video, and bad things can happen. Now, I'm obviously not saying subscribing to PewDiePie is a bad thing, but you get my point. This is just one type of cross-site scripting attack. There are actually three main types to be aware of. Persistent, also known as stored, non-persistent, also known as reflected, and DOM-based. There are some others as well, but they're not as popular, so we're just going to cover these three main ones. The PewDiePie example I just described is a persistent or stored cross-site scripting attack. The injected code is stored on YouTube servers, and anyone visiting the page triggers the script. So now let's talk about non-persistent or reflected attacks. Let's use Reddit as our application for this example. Once again, I'll be the attacker and you're the target. If I run a search for Davy Rogers, Reddit puts my search term on the page that's returned when we get the results. And you can also see the term in the URL. So if I send you this URL, you'll see that it's a legitimate Reddit link and probably open it without thinking too much about it. And when you do, you'll be greeted with the exact same page. But this page contains something that I typed, which isn't under the control of Reddit. So I'm asking you to look at something I did, disguising it under the authority of Reddit, a trusted and respected website. So if Reddit search functionality was vulnerable to cross-site scripting, I could inject my subscribe to PewDiePie JavaScript here and then send you the link. It still looks like a legitimate link, and you probably still open it without thinking too much about it. And now you've been asked to subscribe to PewDiePie. Just to be clear, I'm not actually doing anything to YouTube or Reddit in these examples. I'm just making these things look like they're working for demonstration purposes. Because I think it's easier to explain with these examples, as these are the platforms you and I are using. This non-persistent attack is less chaotic than the persistent attack we looked at in the first attack. Anyone who visited the page on the first attack, regardless of how they got there, would be activating the code. The second attack, only people who click the specific link that I set up would be affected. The third type of attack we're going to cover in this video is the DOM-based attack. It's a little more to explain, but it's pretty cool, so stick with me. DOM stands for Document Object Model, and it basically describes the structure of a web page that's being read by your browser. A web page is a hierarchy of objects. So for example, a paragraph tag is an object, but a paragraph tag isn't on its own, right? It sits inside a body tag, which sits inside a HTML tag. And as well as the body tag, there's normally a head tag, which contains the meta and title tag. And then you have your main content items like headers, links, and images. And obviously all these things are written in a document, in this case a HTML file. That document is read by the browser and the browser looks at all these objects and displays the page that we see. So we have a document containing a lot of objects, and those are modeled in a specific hierarchy that's described by the document object model, or DOM for short. Still with me? Okay, so JavaScript can interact with the DOM, and that's one of the things that websites like YouTube and Reddit use to make websites more interactive. Now, using the console in the browser, I can show you JavaScript referencing one of these elements, and I can change it to anything I like. So if we go back to YouTube and take a look at PewDiePie's subscribe account, we can see that if we inspect the element, it has an ID called subscribe account. Using JavaScript, we can rewrite this in our browser and set it to anything we like. So let's say 150 million. Just doing my part, bros. So now we know what the DOM is, and we've seen an example of JavaScript interacting with the web page. We could talk about the DOM cross-site scripting attack. Some websites use JavaScript to render user input onto the page. A DOM-based attack takes advantage of this and allows an attacker to inject JavaScript into elements that are not properly sanitized. Here's an example using the damn vulnerable web application on Metasploitable 2 that we set up in our lab in a previous video. We can enter data here, and the data is stored in our browser. Here, there's some JavaScript making a reference to it. Because this isn't sanitized, we can put our script in here and it gets triggered. If you'd like to support this channel, please share this video around. Just press that share button and send it out to your friends. If you want to know more about these sorts of attacks, I suggest getting a copy of the Web Application Hacker's Handbook. Thank you for watching and sharing this video, I really appreciate it. I'll see you next time.